you very much, everyone, for joining us. The topic of this next panel discussion will be pay TV operators, OTT D2C, direct-to-consumer strategies. I'm Sarah Clark. I'll be moderating this conversation, but the experts who are the insights into their operations across the APAC region are the panelists you can see in front of me. We're looking at Marco Guida from True Digital, Fakra Posodo from Vision, Ewan Smith, we've got from Astro, and Jose Luis Vasquez from Murata. I'm going to throw it straight to you guys to give 60 seconds basically about your brief, noting that some of the content or the subjects that we'll be looking at in this discussion are the approaches of operators going OTT D2C, the role of set-top boxes, potentially in other devices, and the challenges we face on the technology scale. So let's start with Jose Luis. If you can talk to us about who you are, your role in your company, and you've got about 60 seconds or so just to let the audience know who you are and a bit about your profile.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It's an honor to be talking here today. I'm Jose. I have been working for Mirada for more than 20 years now. I'm the founder and chief executive of the company. We have been in the world of digital TV since the beginning, since its inception. We run activities across the globe with customers in Asia, in Europe, and in the Americas mainly. And we have a technology for distribution and discovery of content. Okay, so it's basically a platform that many of our customers, millions of our subscribers are using these days.
The frame. So you and tell us about who you are, your role, and your background.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for inviting me today. So I work for Astro. So Astro looks after about 5.6 million customers across Malaysia. We have a Astro pay TV set-top box product. We also have a FreeSat Enjoy product, which also is primarily DTH. And we also have a OTT app now, Suka, which we launched about a year ago. Allied to that, we also have a burgeoning ISP fiber backbone that we're now delivering into the market. That's the TV pillar, and I look after the TV pillar. We have two other pillars. One is radio, where we have about 18 million people listen to our radio every single week in the radio team. And then we have an e-commerce platform called Go Shop, which looks after about 3.2 million shoppers every single week. So that's kind of the Astro structure. So I look after the TV business of that, and I look after all of the tech for the whole unit.
Okay, Fakrul, can you tell us about your role, your brief, and your company, so the audience can understand a bit about who you are?
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Thank you also, Nextv, for inviting me into this session. I'm Fahrul from Transvision. My role is the Business Development Director in the company. Transvision is owned by two big corporations in Indonesia. One is CT Corpora, owned by a conglomerate in Indonesia, and the other one is a state-owned company, Telkom Indonesia. So Transvision right now have the service mainly in DTH, but we are also expanding into the OTT since 2020. We have several services such as set-top box, web, and mobile platforms for the OTT. I hope to have a good discussion today. Thank you.
Okay, Marco, finally to you, if you can give us an explanation about who you are, a bit about your company and your profile.
Sure. First of all, Sarah, thank you for inviting me. My name is Marco. I work for True Digital. True Digital is the digital arm of True, that is a telco operator. True Digital deals in multiple digital verticals going from IoT to consumer. My role is focusing mostly on consumer, where we have an app called True ID, which is focused on content privileges. And then we have a set-top box called True ID TV, specifically that we do in partnership with Google. My role for True Digital, I'm the Chief Business and Revenue Officer.
Okay, I'm just noting also we've got a virtual audience. If you do have any questions, feel free to add them to the chat. We can canvass them during the conversation. We can canvass them at the end of the discussion. Let's open with the obvious kind of question, and we'll start with you, Ewan, the state of the market. Let's look at finding the right model, certainly the APAC audience. Where do you see the state of the market in this region?
So I guess I'll try and keep my comments to Malaysia because that's what I know best. But we're very much in transition. I'd say that in terms of the market, we are probably 3 to 5 years behind what you see happening in the more mature US and European markets. So we have effectively had a legacy satellite broadcast play which has dominated the landscape for quite a number of years, which is now being put under pressure by two things. One is, of course, is that as Malaysia rolls out IP, we're not rolled out yet, but we are increasingly covering homes with high-speed broadband. So as Malaysia rolls out IP and as OTT global competitors come into the market, the likes of Netflix and Disney Plus more recently and View and the like are coming into the market. The question is how we pivot as a company to address that, while also making sure that this extremely strong legacy base that we have is also looked after in terms of entertainment and viewing. So we're kind of like, we're in a bridging place, and I think we're probably, as I say, probably 3 years behind the guys at Foxtel that I used to work with, and we're probably 5 to 6 behind the European guys. But it's the market's moving, it's the same demographics, it's people, it's the shift from linear broadcast to OTT on-demand viewing that is taxing us all, which is why we're here, I guess.
Yeah, that's obviously a key point. The Southeast Asian market is also very different individually. Jose, can we talk about you? Let's look at your market. What's the state of the market that you see, particularly in Thailand?
Well, I understand that in APAC there is a very, very quick transition, as Kyung was saying, from the legacy cable and satellite services to IP, as a difference to other markets in which broadband came first and IP services were very, very in the early days. Now we have D2C OTT services that are quite mature and investing a lot in marketing and sales strategies in the region. So as the broadband access is growing rapidly, what we see is a big threat for the consolidated players in the TV space. So we are seeing a very, very quick transition, or a willingness to transition from the traditional technologies of distribution of content to IP-based distribution. Some of them IPTV, some others just going straight to through OTT. So it's an explosion. The APAC market is a focus for us now. Is our main market in terms of what we are devoting our sales and marketing strategies. And what I see
at the
is
Indonesian market, what do you what's the state of the market, and obviously the difference when it comes to consumer behavior in that market? How does it compare?
Okay, in Indonesia itself, currently the DTH market is well, I can say it's starting to decline. Yeah, as mentioned, there is a transition to the OTT market where the internet services are getting better. So the opportunity for people accessing over the top is increasing. Also this year, our government has launched the analog to digital project. So most of the people are shifting to the digital TV. This is a challenge for us. Based on our research and surveys, the market in Indonesia, the largest market in Indonesia is for the household with income very low, very lower income at about $500. So this market, of course, less have the credit cards payment. So the integration with direct carrier billing payment or other payment, digital money, which is increasing by 50% in Indonesia, is a genuine factor for the subscription in Indonesia. So the market is currently very in a rapid change. So people are very price sensitive in terms of subscription. They are looking for the contents that they would like to see and select. And of course, the second one will be the price, the importance of price. I think that's the current market that we see in Indonesia right now, Sarah.
Okay, Marco, looking to you, how do you see the state of the market? Obviously, it's a very diverse market across APAC. Tell me about your specifics and where you see consumer behaviour, where it's heading and where it's different.
So if I speak about Thailand, and I've been in Thailand for almost 4 years now, I've seen the consumer behavior radically shifting. I think this is due to two phenomena. Number one, of course, as people tend to use more and more smartphone or connected device in general, there is the phenomenon of cord cutting. And on the other side, in the market, in the past 4 years, when I moved to Thailand, the number of OTT player was very small, and now the level of course, all different contents, but there are more like than 10 OTT players in the market. So it's become a very different market from where I joined, and it's continued to evolve. I agree with the comments that were made. People are becoming more choosy in terms of what they want, like more savvy in a way. They become also more price sensitive. Like this is very different from the situation when I started working, where you have this big TV that are huge market share. So I think the name of the game is to adapt, but in parallel, of course, particularly for us, but also for tech operator that move towards like become technology company. It's important on one side to adapt to address the needs of our market, but on the other side, let's not forget of our older audience. So it's adapt, but also be very careful to balance it, because while you want to address the new customer need, you don't want to disappoint your existing.
I fear we may have lost Sarah.
Yes.
Like. We're all wearing white shirts, guys. We look quite like a kind of like very old boy band. So should we just start singing while we're waiting and doing the dances?
The audience will go if I get to sing, Ivan. So I'd rather not to do that.
We look like Take That 20 years on.
That will make it for a very different panel.
Never ever do these things live, I think is the headline. Never ever do a live demo.
Guys, sorry about that. I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Welcome.
Yes. I'm in Queenstown with a very good network, so I have no idea what happened. Okay, let's go back onto the discussion. Jose, we're coming to you looking at Murata, looking at the fact that you're working across a number of or several markets. Are they different or are they unified, kind of on a general scale, given Murata's perspective in the APAC region?
Well, one thing that is common to every market now is the fragmentation of the content. There are content silos. In the past, it was fairly easy to find whatever you want to watch in just one supplier, being any pay TV operator or Netflix when it came, or iFlix. Content agreements were easier that days because streaming was not that important, and the streaming window was not relevant in the strategies of the majors. Now, this is completely different, and it's coming or already came, as Marco was saying, to APAC now. If you want to have a complete content portfolio, you need to at least have 2 or 3 streaming services being contracted. This is extremely unpleasant for final users. The main reason is that whenever you want to find content, you need to go through 3 or 4 different applications, search tools. You don't have any unified recommendation engines. So what we have seen as a market trend starting in the US, but now going everywhere else, is a super aggregation trend, in which someone is getting content agreements with mainly the D2C actors. Problem with people like Netflix or HBO or Disney is that even if they have a very, very good reach in terms of their brand, the content rights they have are limited to their own production now. So Netflix is no longer an aggregator of content from third parties. They are basically producing content. So churn rates on the D2C, on the pure OTT players are over 50% in most markets. This is completely unbearable for them. The only way they have to reduce those churn rates is to go through aggregation strategies through pay TV partners mainly. And this is where the market is going. People like Astro, people like Transvision, basically, they are transitioning from the old grid model to a set of agreements with content partners, trying to promote content like they were doing in the past, but in a more fashionable way now, and having a good recommendation and unified search tool. Technology here plays a very important role, but the most critical point here is not technology, and I'm a technology provider, is how do you deal with your content distribution agreements. So I think this is the key element in terms of strategies for pay TV players. They still can manage the churn rates from 15 if they are lucky to 30% if they are unlucky. But this is still way better for a D2C player to go through an aggregator than to go straight to the market. Obviously, they will continue going straight in a D2C strategy, but most of the growth and the sustained customer relationships will, as in other markets, especially in the United States and the Americas, will go through big distribution agreements like Comcast or like Astro or others. This is the main trend. I would like to discuss today about set-top boxes. I know this
looking
is
at the consumer
topic,
trends, and we talked about price
and
sensitivity as
especially
well,
about the
and
devices,
people
so,
basing their decisions
consumer
on
devices and
price and things being cheaper.
strategies
Are we
for
seeing
pay
that
TV players
the
in terms
way
of consumer
it's a very
electronics, because
mobile-driven market
this is
across the
a
region?
key element these
Is
days.
the trend changing? Let's go maybe to Marco. Can you see that the trend's changing? Now, we'll get onto COVID next. It's just a topical issue in consumer habits. But how do you see the market changing when it comes to people consuming on mobile devices?
So, as you can imagine, I think Thailand be one of the top country for per user consumer like a smartphone. It has changed massively, and we see this in our data how the content is being consumed. Of course, large screen is still important, but the reality is that these days people consume like a big time. A big portion of their time is spent on mobile, and hence sometimes you also have to adapt not just the technology, not just how you distribute, but also the type of content that you will buy. Because of course, if you consume content on your mobile, some type of content will be, I would say, less consumed and will be less of a pool. For example, you need to look at things like average duration and how many times some of the content is viewed to understand. The other part that this I think it's driving is also like the level of price sensitivity. Now, I think this is a function of two things. One is, of course, the fact that you have many competitors in the market, but also I want to say that it also depends on the type of content, because, for example, sport versus no sport, the people willingness to pay, if we talk about price sensitivity, it's very different. It's become even more market the difference between the I want to say the casual consumer and the real fan, and their willingness to pay for exclusive content, but also earlier access to content. Like that is very, very different from what I saw just 4 or 5 years ago. So yes, overall, if you ask me, Marco, are people more price sensitive now than they used to be 5 or 10 years ago? I will tell you yes, but it's not just like a blanket. Like the lower you price, the better. This is actually very, very different on how you structure a content offer, and people are still willing to pay for quality, for exclusive access, and for things that would save their time. So I believe the market, if you look at superficially, you think, okay, this is easy, I know how to do it. But in reality, the minute you start looking and study people behavior and pattern of consumption, you will understand that the consumer has become a lot more savvy than just 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, moving ahead, noting that I lost you before, and that was completely my fault. Looking ahead at the strategies of partnerships, or looking at partnerships, are they unavoidable to succeed with the OTT direct-to-consumer platforms? Either you or Fakrul, would you like to have a way into this one?
Okay, from the partnership, I think that's something that is very important. And of course, if I see in the Indonesian market, the players from the global are coming to Indonesia and get partnership with one of the biggest telco providers in Indonesia, it's Telkomsel. Disney Plus started it, and then Netflix also came to the partnership in the Q2 of 2022 with partnership with Telkomsel, which have more than 175 million customers. They have direct subscription penetration directly. So, and continuing what Marco have mentioned, in Indonesia as well, the smartphone penetration is increasing exponentially. And in the past COVID pandemic of COVID, what we understand, the annual growth of the OTT market is increasing as well. It is 200% from the predicted market that we received in 2019 from actual data that we got in 2020 and 2021. So COVID-19 is not stopping the OTT, but they are increasing it rapidly. So, and the majority of the users that we understand from the OTT is also shifting. If previously from the DTH market, we can sell our product within 100 with full services, all the channels that we can offer. Right now, it's more pricey. We need to give content that is more selected and match with the market with a lower price. The people will just pick what they need or what they want. They are not getting all the services that we have. So we need to very selected in giving the contents. The profile of the users also span with the younger one between 15 and 34. So it's another challenge to provide suitable content for the profiles.
Coming to you, looking at the issue of content, as a local player, a competitive edge over other companies, what's the key to your strategy? Are you also leading this content powerhouse? What's your kind of thoughts on this?
So let me try and answer that by saying how we've set ourselves up. So we're thinking out about customer size of one, and the mantra inside this company is that we need to be transmission agnostic and almost customer agnostic, and distribute our content wherever we can. We think about it in 3 buckets. So bucket number 1 is big, what we call full fat. It's a family, it's a big screen package, it is a bundled offer, and inside that bundled offer we will have the best content that we can possibly have. Now, historically for Astro, we made a load of great content, and then we bought studios, mainly Hollywood studios. And that game hasn't changed, just some of the names have changed. So we're still making 11,000 hours every year of our own Astro local content, and it's really good. Yep. And we have a strong sports proposition, both local and global, alongside that. But alongside that, we also still want to buy the best of the rest in terms of the content bundles. And whereas that used to come out of Hollywood studios, now it's coming from Korea, or it's coming from China, or it's coming out of apps like Netflix or Disney Plus Hotstar or iQIYI. And these are the people that we're now mainly doing our content deals with. And the proposition at that level is that there is value in customers having all that content aggregated together, our great stuff, plus all the best of the rest, having that all in one place on a big screen, having a mobile app, which is Astro Go, which allows you to basically put that in your pocket. So all those titles that are on your big screen, 65,000 assets of them are actually in your pocket in Astro Go as well. And then add to that a value broadband proposition. And there is a market for that, we believe, because customers increasingly are finding that by the time you've added all of these individual OTT services and a broadband service together, I mean, I did the maths for a town hall for the guys just last week, yeah? The same thing that you can get from me, if you add up all the individual value by retail prices in market, it's about 100 ringgit more. It's about 25 to 30% more, depending on exactly what you're buying. So our proposition of simple convenience, single bill, one place for all of your content and bundled, it does provide the best value, I think holds. But our second play is there is a bunch of customers and they tend to skew younger and they tend to skew, like we call them millennials. You see what we've done there? Yeah, but they skew younger. They are not interested in big screen. They're interested in small screen. They're not interested in long-term contracts because they're quite mobile. They're moving around. They're interested in what they can get on their iPhone. To try and extend the Astro brand to that population would be folly because they don't gel with the proposition, which is why we built Sukkah. So Sukkah's content is all about, if you don't want Astro, what can we build for you that still allows us to monetize and still allows us to put all of our great content in front of you, has a little bit of a different flavor to it because, I say, it skews millennials, it skews towards a younger demographic, but still is a place where you can buy, and you can buy at a different price point and a different rate, which is why Sukkah exists in its own ecosystem as an app that can play with somebody else, but that's Alpha Astro is living in a different universe for a different group of people. Both of them have a broadband component and a connection to them so that we can actually add value to the proposition. And so in Sukkah, what you'll find in Sukkah as we're using some of our own Astro content, so some of the great originals content that we have. We're using some of our library, but we're also building our own Sukkah originals. So we've only been running for about a year, and lockdown prevented us actually building any content ourselves for the first 6 months of that period. But we're now building originals to add to the other things that we have and to put that in a place where we think that it will be an exciting proposition. So I guess the headline from all that is that we're trying to think about different buckets of ways to monetize and present great content to different audiences.
Jose, can I get your thoughts on aggregation?
Well, that's a big topic. So let's just start with the different elements that you can aggregate. So I'm understanding that you mean content aggregation, because obviously we talk about service aggregation, that is what Astro is doing in terms of bundles and what everyone is doing. So if you talk about content aggregation, you basically deal with 3 different layers, if you want, of content providers. I was talking to one of my customers the other day, and he was complaining about how old an agreement with a specific content provider was, because in this agreement, it still was referring mainly to the linear channels and value-added linear channels, premium channels, and as an extra for that, the OTT service was coming for free to the platform. And this was a very old agreement. It was like 4 years old agreement. So it's like, what's happening now? It's completely the opposite. Now you talk about the content library, and most of your content providers are basically removing the real value from their linear proposition and just coming to talk to the library. And the linear proposition is something that is like a dinosaur, slowly extinguishing, except in some specific areas that are basically live sports and news in some local propositions. Okay, so when you talk to the big guys, aggregation becomes more a one-to-one agreement. It depends on your size as a company. You will be able to get a good deal or not in terms of being able to have access to the metadata and being able to put the metadata into your own search engine. If you are lucky or you are Astro size, perhaps you can make it. But if you are a small guy, you want to say a small is sub-million, you will struggle getting metadata from people like Disney or especially Netflix, and big names will just refer to their own application to be able to find content. So in that layer, in that tier, basically it's about power relationships, and it's about what you can do in terms of price discounts for customers. So you have Netflix in the platform, and then it's 50% off, 15% off. Okay, and then I get a share of that, and etc. It's price strategy, bundle strategy, and for Netflix, good. For you, is good. But for customers, if you don't have access to metadata, not that important. It's just a price proposition and not ideal. Okay. In the middle ones, and when I say middle ones, I'm sorry if someone from any of these is attending the meeting, the panel, and considering them in a different tier. Say perhaps HBO Max, and some others. You will have better access to metadata and better ways to aggregate content, but still use their application usually now. Okay, it's just the small players now, the small content providers, basically channels without big production proposition, who will come and just offer you everything and let you use your own player to access the content. So summary, it depends on who you are talking to.
We've discussed Disney investing massively in the local market. What's the reaction been? Say, Fakul, can you tell us about what the reaction's been in APAC with regards to Disney?
To get the data about the content consumption.
Okay, yeah, we saw that Disney is dominating the market for the SEO.
It's not easy. It's not easy because these players
so
are trying to
they are starting also to aggregate with the local
silos in terms of the
content
technology
providers
that is allowing you
because
to
they
consume
understand that the local content is one of the main or major decision making for the subscriber to pick one of the OTT platforms. Yeah. In Indonesia, if we see most of the OTT players, OTT platforms have the linear TV of the free-to-air channels at their lineup. Yeah, from our data as well, majority of the top 10 viewers watch is consists from the local or linear free-to-air. So it's something that is decisive in the market. If you go with OTT platforms from the local players, they will carry the linear free-to-air TV. Disney and Netflix trying to catch up with that by aggregating or partnership with local production or buying some local contents. They're adding more and more local contents just to grab more attentions from our local market. So the strategy to go to the Indonesian market is carrying the local content. That's the crucial, if I can say.
Marco, can I throw to you, looking at content discovery, how do viewers reach new content? What are your thoughts in your market?
like for me, it's and this is I'm gonna wear my analytics hat for a second, no, like, because of course now the content offer has never been more fractioned, no, even like players like, for example, also us, now we aggregate and we have our own content. It's still for the consumer. Sometimes can be a challenge. You have multiple apps, you have multiple. So how do you make sure the customer get what he wants? I think this is where the right combination of art and science will really help. I think, of course, content curation has always been important. So this is not like something that wasn't, but now it's probably fundamental because the level of offer, it's I think is I don't know, probably 100 times what it was just 10, 15 years ago. And human mind is the same. So basically there it's where analytics come to the rescue, things like a recommendation engine, making sure that the customer has access to the content that is tailored for him, but also to the apps that are relevant for him, particularly when we're talking smart screen. And I think here it's where technology and analytics in particular can really help the consumer, because of course you can use his viewing pattern to basically tailor and optimize the way content is displayed. So, of course, there are the algorithm can be extremely simple to extremely complicated in the end. And I used to be a data scientist, so but in the end, all it counts is the customer feedback. So I think what analytics allows you, what digital analytics allow you to do now, is having that feedback loop that in the past, it's not that it wasn't existing, but often it wasn't fast enough. And now I think, while of course the offer has increased 15-fold, so is the accuracy and the ability to ingest data. So I think in our company, we really pride ourselves to use state-of-the-art algorithm to recommend the right content for the right customer. Now, as some of my colleagues say earlier, this can vary depending on what level of partnership do you have with other OTT. Now, because of course on your own content you have maximum flexibility. On other people's content, no matter you partner with, of course there are limitations. But having said that, I think now content curation, which again is not purely science, is also art. It's become fundamental to make sure the customers stay engaged. Because if the customer is not engaged anymore, there is so much noise in the market, they will go somewhere else. These days, is a lot easier to switch, particularly for younger generation, millennials or like Gen Z. Now they're not going to stay 6 months if they suddenly say, okay, I'm paying for this and I haven't watched anything in the past month or two. They will go somewhere else. So I think if we want to be true to our customer proposition, we need to offer the content they want, but also display it. And those things are very, very important, because only having great content, unfortunately, is not enough. I think you also need to be sure that in your platform, being mobile, being large screen, the customer is able to find it, to navigate it, and to enjoy it.
Yeah, I want to move swiftly into the last kind of part of our this conversation. That's looking at some of the challenges in this region. How much has the connectivity and infrastructure improved in the region, and do they still pose challenges? Maybe, Fakul, can I come to you on that particular looking at the technology and challenges in this region?
Yes, of course. The challenges, if you mention about the internet connectivity, it's something that is very, very relevant with what we have in Indonesia. Indonesia is archipelagic country, state, which have more than 7,000 islands. So the infrastructure is something that is very, very challenging for us. Our government has started the palaparing, what we call, since 2007, to connect all the province in Indonesia. And currently, from the size of the household, is still not still 70% have the internet access. But the upcoming of the 5G in the country helps penetrate more and more for the consuming of the streaming. But of course, this the next challenge is the price, because apart from paying the subscription for the content, they also need to pay the subscription for the internet access. So the challenge will still be there. And what we see in the next future is about the satellite internet, which have more wider coverage. I don't know how about the price. If the price can match it will provide a lower price, then it will be a solution. But meanwhile, I think the combinations of DTH in rural area is still something that we aim for. But for the greater area, 74% of our OTT is still in Java and Sumatra. I think the penetration of the internet, broadband, and mobile is critical for the penetration of the market.
We're looking at, again, we've got a couple of minutes left, and I do want to throw to kind of final conclusion from each of you, just because it's an interesting insight from the different markets. So looking at that, going ahead, potentially 45 seconds each, Ewan, where do you want to throw to? Where do you see the state of the market in this region moving? What are your thoughts? What innovations do you see happening? Take us where you'd like to take us.
I will repeat the mantra that my gang hear from me regularly, which is that at the end of the day, there's only three things that are important here: content, product, and marketing. And when we talk marketing, we talk about not just traditional marketing, but digital marketing and the search and discovery that allows people to get the content in play. And I think you can't go too far wrong as an operator, whether you're operating an OTT platform or you're a legacy pay TV operator. If you just focus on, you've got great content, you're making or you're buying the best content. If you're putting it into a product which is super simple to use and super simple to operate, and where you can get great marketing to tell people what you're doing, how good it is, and to make sure they can surface it quickly, then you have a long future in this industry. And that applies in APAC as much as it applies in the rest of the world. I do think that in APAC, we do have some challenges around connectivity, not just in terms of homes passed with fibre and high-speed broadband, but also then the number of people that can afford it, even when it's fully rolled out. So there's a long period, I think, where the plays in these markets will continue to be part satellite, part IP, and it's just about how you bridge that and the dynamics and how you transition as you're going across that divide. Satellite is still by far and away the best medium for us to get 4K into every single home, and the best medium for us to get to rural and other geographies. So that's the play. You have to play all of the angles, I think, if you want to be a success in the region.
Jose, 30 seconds. Where do you see the market heading?
Well, my understanding is that content is today the main, if not the only way to differentiate yourself. Rest of services are usually commodities. Okay, so in terms of how do you manage content, you need to know your customer, you need to create segments, you need to have a very, very, very flexible platform that will allow you to modify the user experience and adapt the user experience for every single cluster of users.
Okay, we're running out of time, so Marco, quickly, you've got 10 seconds.
Good agreements, good distribution agreements.
I totally agree with what has been said, and I think to add my 5 cents, it's really
navigated,
in the
how the
next
content
few
is
years.
being consumed will help you not only
in
for
the next few
years,
I do believe
you are
that there is not everyone can be successful, and those players that will have been successful
to be able to have a
would have one thing in common,
satisfaction.
They all would listen to their customer, and they would develop
and the way
value
you manage
proposition.
content
That on one side is simple enough that people understand why they want to use your service, and on the other side is large enough that you reach enough critical mass.
Okay, Fakhrul, can you get quick?
Very, very simple to say, very difficult to do.
Yeah, for the content side, of course, the collaboration and partnership is the critical one. In terms of the product, we are waiting for more advanced technology in terms of lesser bandwidth consume, compressions, and others, so that the problem of the connectivity can be solved as well. And I'm also looking at the opportunity of the blockchain in the future to cover our challenge in the piracy problems in the most of the pay TV operators. I think that's three parts. Thank you.
Yeah, we didn't even get to really canvas piracy. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you to our audience as well for joining us. Sorry, we're wrapping up quickly, but we have gone over time. We do have the next conversation coming up in less than 15 minutes now. That subject is innovation in content distribution. So thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again all soon.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, Jose, Iwan, Marco, Sarah. Thank you.
Ciao, guys.
Ciao.
Thank you. Nice.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.